while the power will fall. And someday the high and the mighty will fall. There will be no power brokers, the wall of power will fall. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. We have a great guest on tonight, an old buddy of mine, although we haven't spoken in 20 or 30 years because this guy has crisscrossed the country, following that musical dream that he's had and stuck with. Mr. Willie Wisely will be performing a special Valentine's Day concert at the Granada Theater in Uptown Minneapolis. He's going to tell us all about it, but before we get into it, Willie, how are you tonight?
Oh, Paul, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, doing really well. Actually calling you from warm California.
Well, the sun's out up here in Duluth, and the snow's melting, so I'm taking that as a win. But I'm not putting on my sunscreen yet. I don't have to. But it's so great to get caught up, and now you're living back in Minnesota.
That is right. Yes, we have a house. It's like all of us. It's buried in 3 feet of snow on the roof with ice dams and everything going on. So I'm proud to be back in Minnesota shoveling snow. I love it.
And you're in Montemedi, correct?
Yeah, we live out in Matamidi, Delwood, at the northeast corner of the lake, White Bear Lake. So really enjoying the east side. I was always a Minneapolis kid, so it's all new turf to be over east, and I love it.
Do you know Billy McLaughlin?
Oh, absolutely, yes, very well.
He's your neighbor out there somewhere.
You know it. I frequently drive past his driveway with that huge old 1960s Greyhound bus parked in the driveway.
That's the way to travel and stuff. When we did a little pre-interview a few days ago, you were telling me Montemedi, and your wife is a Centerville, Minnesota girl, right?
Yep, that's where she's from.
And I lived with a lovely lady on the Hugo Centerville border, right down the street from Tria Restaurant, and just loved it. But we used to go, there was a great steak joint out in Montemedi, and there's a building that's still there. It's been closed for quite a while. Supposedly, that's where the Ma Barker and her gang used to go for dinner between burglaries and robberies, whatever else they were doing. But I heard a great story. They were great customers, and they got a tip that the cops were on their trail and coming to that restaurant to arrest them. They got the dibs on it. They took off, but Ma Barker was nice enough. Not long after that, when they made their getaway, she sent somebody back because they forgot to pay their bill and leave a tip. A lot of history out there. In fact, a buddy of mine said that John Dillinger had a little hideout out there somewhere as well.
Now that I don't know about, but I do. I mean, some bad news. Yeah, they just tore down what was most recently called the Lakeview Country Club or something like that. Yeah, and that was the building that you're talking about. It was in this really weird zone, like it's obviously like a hidden in the woods sort of perfect for 1920s mobsters to disappear to. Yeah, and plus there was a big, I think in the 20s there was still a big on that edge of White Bear Lake a amusement park. So I'm sure they could dodge in and out of there and stay in and out of trouble as they wished. So.
And when we drive around out there, you'd see all these little country roads, and I kept thinking, that these were the little hidden trails that these characters used to drive around and hit out in. And I used to go, God, is there anybody buried in those swamps out there?
I know, or at least some stashes of Tommy guns or whatever. Yeah,
exactly, or their loot, right? Hey, let's. When I was reading a little bit of your bio now, you really started to make a name for yourself in the '80s with the Willie Wisely Trio, and I recently had Kevin Bowe on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. And for some reason, I always kind of considered Kevin Bowe coming of age with his band Summer of Love, and then his recordings. And yourself kind of came out of that whole early to mid 80s rock and roll scene, which was so vibrant, as we know, back then in the Twin Cities music scene.
Without a doubt, Kevin and I shared a stage as early as 1989. I think it was my first gig in the 7th Street entry as Willie Wisely Trio, and we co-billed with Rhea Valentine.
Sure.
And that was he and Wendy. I think he was the co-writer and the guitarist in that band, and he was just always a super impressive talent and great on stage. And it's just, I can't be good enough friends with that guy. We were all way too busy. I would just love to spend some time. And your interview with him, by the way, was great. I'm a new devotee to your show, Paul.
Well, I'm happy that you take the time to chat with us. And I've, followed your career from a bit of a distance for years. And when I was reading over the bio you sent, a guy doesn't have to go to music school. You really did it with some of the names that I'm going to mention now, who you worked with and studied with. First of all, a guy that really helped me out when I put out my first record, Paper Tigers in 1984, Mr. Dougie Ackerman.
You know Dougie. Yes, he's legendary.
We were very tight. He held my hand when I put out my first single with Cats and the Stars in 1982. I'm trying to think, who was the guy he worked with? You'd remember him if I said his name.
Randy Grass? Randy Grass?
Who was that?
Randy Grass?
No, not Randy. Dark-haired guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, I saw Dougie. I was playing at Nice Polonaise Room. I started playing there in about 1998, and Dougie came down to have dinner, and was still, it's one of the most sweetest cats in the music business of all time. And he was telling me about it. He had a hookup at a club down in Key West, and he wanted to get some of my material down there for a possible gig. And so I just happened to have some stuff in the car, as, all self-promoters do, right? And so I gave him a little package, and then, geez, it was just a couple of weeks later he passed away. But tell the folks out there in the Wall of Power Radio Land a little bit about Dougie Ackerman.
Yeah, I met him. I was third tier manager at the Wax Museum there in Dinkytown, kind of an epic record store in Minneapolis history, and it was owned by the Heilikers, which is kind of like retail record royalty from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and Minneapolis was always a huge music retail town for some strange reason, and the Heilikers were part of that. Anyway, I worked for that. I was helping with used record buying and stuff like that. And one day I was running the store, and I'm playing this new record that came in called Augustus Pablo's, Firehouse, I think it was, or something. And it's on this weird label called Shawnee, and it's this dub reggae, hardcore dub reggae. And Dougie Ackerman walks in the door and goes, "What the hell's going on?" The world has forgot about this. It's Dougie Ackerman. I got an office around the corner in Dinkytown, upstairs from Grace Drugs, and we distribute Shawnee. And I'm like, Shawnee's a going concern? Like, what? Wow. Still? And Dougie was all hooked in with this reggae company that had bought, an Irish label named I'm drawing a blank. Sugar Hill, I don't know. That just a cool folk and Irish thing. So Dougie hired me pretty much on the spot. Said, "I need you to come be my promo guy." So I've never seen that. He was my first maverick dude, a record industry guy to just believe in me just by vibe, and I loved him.
Yes, Dougie Ackerman, may he rest in peace. Well, there's a couple other big names in your background. Tell us a little bit about working with Steve Greenberg and John Fields.
Yeah, those were the first guys to really believe in my music and get behind me 100%. They had started Stevie, who, had amassed wealth and influence through his big hit Funky Town, really got behind his nephew, John Fields, and said, John, we're going to start an empire together. You're going to produce all these people. Stevie called in every favor he had in the industry to grow John's talent, which was profound, which remains profound. And so John went through Minneapolis looking for great artists to sign. He signed a number of them. He initially came to me and said, hey, I'm putting together a John Denver tribute. Willie, why don't you come in the studio and we'll just do a live take with my favorite musicians? And I am a big John Denver fan. We did it, and it worked out. It was super easy. So he pinned me against the wall and said, are you a star? And I'm like, what? This is after the session, and I'm like, I'm from Minnesota. I don't know how to answer that question, right? We're all humble pie, dismissive of himself, kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, well, we got to work together. You're going to be a star. I'm going to make your records. And I'm like, whoa, I guess you are. And we made mine. John is such a number. He says it like he sees it, and to this day, he just will blurt out whatever's on his mind, and I just love him. With dear friends. And he made my 1996 record, and my 1997 record, in close succession, Turbo Sherbert. And those two albums, Uncle Stevie and they made sure they got on college radio nationwide. I went on national tours, DIY tours, but, we just with the backing of October and their staff, they had a real deal record label out there in the studio in Golden Valley. So I just, Uncle Stevie remains just a beloved person to me, eternally a patron of my art and my songwriting, and the same with Mr. Fields. And John produced my 2019 album, Face the Sun, which you'll be playing a track off of Cut Your Groove, is the name of the track. So, yeah, love John, love Stevie.
Give both those gentlemen my best. We're going to listen to a song by my guest, Willie Wisey, a track called Through Any Window, and we'll be with Willie all night tonight on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Early in the morning when the sun comes through any window, break the promise that each day's a new early morning. Through any window, blue is the memory of a bedroom eyes, green as the envy I can't hide, red is the color that she lays so bare in early morning. Sunlight kissed me on my hat of gloom in early morning. Glide across the bed, then fade at noon through any window. In early morning, blue is the memory of a bedroom eyes, green as the envy I can't hide, red is the color that she lays so bare in early morning. Through any window, school bus take them far from home, take the children far from home, take the children far from home, soon to see how sad their lives become. Through any window, and blue is the memory of a Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Welcome back to the second set of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guest for the whole night tonight, musician, Mr. Willie Wisely. Willie's been on every angle of the music biz, but we love him as a performer and a songwriter. But the first set we talked about him working with such Minneapolis music legends as Stephen Greenberg, John Fields, and of course Dougie Ackerman. But he also spent some time under the tutelage of one of America's greatest booking agents, Steve McClellan. Talk about working with Steve over at First Avenue, Willie.
Yeah, I mentioned that Dougie was a real maverick inspiration to me in terms of like music business, moxie. And McClellan is just like the same guy in different skin. Steve, brought Uncle Sam's and First Avenue into a place of international recognition, and all the way through and past the Prince Purple Rain years and stuff. And in 1988, little Willie Wisely just needed a damn job, so I got, I went to First Ave and asked if I could be a waitron. And by the way, not a waiter, not a waitress, but a waitron at First Avenue was always early to open-minded stuff. And this is 1988. I go in. Turns out I'm the worst waiter in the world, waitron in the world. And there's an all-company meeting, and the promo person just left. I think there was like some sort of cocaine habit, and she just marched out. And Steve literally looks at me like on my way out the door after basically firing myself, and says, "Are you interested in promo?" And I'm like, yeah, I've never done anything. And so instantly I became the club publicist and in charge of the ticketing and in charge of all the postering and the record store, circuit where we sold all our stuff. There were, 14, 15 major record stores in town at that point. And I just instantly became head of promotions. He just, with no experience, he just believed. He just needed warm bodies. And I sat across the desk from him, just feet away from him for 6 years. 88 to 94, and just soaked up his acerbic, righteous, and very forward-thinking attitude towards humanity, equality, the music business, and keeping art first, and not letting business or legal concerns overwhelm that. And, and then the cavalcade of people that came through there imagine being in the office at First Avenue for those 6 years. You got 2 stages, you got 6 acts a night at least. It's just like I saw so many hundreds of shows, as did many of my colleagues who've lived, from those First Ave years. And it was just an education you can't get anywhere else, or maybe at all anymore, just because it used to be a little more dangerous. The mob guys who'd show up with the booze and
sure.
all it. Everybody chain smoking up in the office drove me crazy. It was just, there was something death-defying about it. Anyway.
I like you. I've seen hundreds of shows at the Entry and First Avenue. I had the good pleasure of playing the Entry. My first show, I opened up for Billy Bragg on his first American tour, and remained good friends to this day with Mr. Bragg. And then I did my first headline show with my band on the main stage in, I think, 1985, where I opened a ton of shows. Geez, I played with Joe Willie and the Tannehill Weavers and Bruce Coburn and Jorma Kaukonen and others. But I tell... there's a young man from my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota, named Preston Gunderson, who recently debuted on the main stage at First Avenue. And I texted him the day of the show, and I said, there is no greater feeling in Minneapolis or maybe anywhere in the country than playing a rock club and sitting behind that curtain as it rises. And there you are on the main stage at First Avenue. It is such a gorgeous rite of passage.
Oh, you couldn't have said it more perfectly. Yep, that's an important stage.
The other thing about McClellan, and I'd say the same thing about Dave Ray, at first, and Willie Murphy, they come off, if you first met them, as some of the most cantankerous people you've ever met. But once you got to know McClellan, Ray, or Willie Murphy, they were the sweetest guys you ever wanted to meet.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what that is. Is their tool to stay true to the music, something like that? I don't know what it is, but it fascinates me. I'm more of a panting Labrador, in my character, so I don't really have that in me. But to be around their energy and their, it helps them curate their life, and it's a beautiful thing. I follow those kind of people,
Well, they're truly visionaries, and boy, you look at, people post occasionally on Facebook the monthly calendars from First Avenue and 7th Street. It's amazing. Anybody who was anybody in the American music scene and from Europe at one point or another has played at First Avenue or 7th Street.
Yeah, and it's still not owned by Live Nation or anything. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's still fiercely independent. And that's a beautiful thing. And I just stepping back an inch, it was McClellan who put Paul Metza in front of Bruce Coburn, in '85 or whatever. That was a personal choice, a thing, and that didn't happen by lottery. This was someone who believed in you, believed your music was special, and believed it shared something urgent with Bruce Coburn's voice, and it was very purposeful there.
Yeah, he really had a feel for what all of us were doing. I remember I had the pleasure of when I had a single come out, I believe it was 86 or 87, and I had my buddy Dave Sneaker Ray open for me. And a friend of mine, Arnie Broger, who was a great booking agent who's back in Minneapolis. And, he's booked over the years John Cale and Tony Bennett. And he had a thing called the Memphis Blues Caravan with Bucka White and Furry Lewis. And I sent him the calendar that somebody posted last month of Dave Ray opening for me. He goes, well, he said, that would have been a great night of music, except the headliners should have been switched around. You and I go, I totally get it, but it was, of course, my record relief show, and Dave couldn't have been nicer than to accept to open that show. But that was the first time Dave had played First Avenue, and Steve was so jacked that I got him. Dave left, right after a show, which is, it's kind of the way Dave rolled. And he was used to do a weekly over at St. Anthony East on East Hennepin, and Steve, the next time Dave played, left First Avenue, which was the first time people said that McClellan had been out of First Avenue in years, and walked over to bring Dave his money for the show. And then, of course, Corinne Glover ended up playing several shows there. But we were lucky, Willie, to know all these guys.
Yep. I met Dave once, actually, through Dougie Ackerman. They were good friends.
Yeah.
If not doppelgangers physically. McClellan knew his history, and he knew how important those guys, those guys were on Elektra Records in the folk revolution, in the early 60s. And yeah, McClellan knew they were meaningful. If forgotten in the local scene, he was going to champion them. I remember we brought them into the main room to open up for something in the late 80s. Can't remember what it was, but I don't know. Hey, cool that you know Billy Bragg. Talk about a righteous guy. There you go.
Oh, yeah. He is a guy that walks the walk and talks the talk, and still is great as ever. Let's talk a little bit about, you saw probably more shows than I did at First Ave, although I wish I had $5 for every free drink ticket I talked McClellan out of over the years, because he was always good even if you weren't playing there. If you had played there, he was always good for 2 or 3 free drink tickets. But, man, I saw personally Link Ray, Metallica, the Neville Brothers, the Ramones. The list goes on and on. What were some of the most legendary shows that you remember, Willie Wisely, that you saw or played at First Avenue?
The most important ones to me are a little odd. I saw the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I saw Nirvana. I saw the Pixies. But the most important ones to me, in my memory, are Fela Kuti.
Oh, yeah, I saw that show.
Oh, my God. The dancers, remember that? One bus pulls up full of dancers, and the other bus pulls up to the nightclub with the musicians.
He was married to like 10 of them at the same time.
Yeah. And that was, what a show. And there was no evidence that they wanted to ever stop playing.
Yeah.
You know, it just could have gone on all night. And that stage was so packed. And remember, there's like a 15-foot tall drum up on the back left of the stage where some guy's standing on top of a ladder playing it. Like, so deep and rich. What a great cultural experience that was, man. And we just danced our asses off. And I actually I made a bootleg recording of it, so I have that on cassette somewhere.
Okay,
but,
we got to talk, Willie.
Yeah, we do have to talk. And then Sun Ra, that was a real big one for me. I'm a jazz freak, so to see the actual Sun Ra playing was pretty mind-blowing. Yeah.
I saw Sun Ra at the Guthrie Theater, and like he says, space is the place.
Yeah, we can relate. You and I.
We got the great Willie Wisely on the show tonight. Tell us a little bit about this next track we're going to listen to, Cut Your Groove.
Yeah, produced by John Fields. It was cut live without a click track. That's a real band. Jim Anton on bass, who I think you played a lot with, Paul.
I got to brag, Willie Wisely. I gave Jimmy Anton his very first gig in Minneapolis. I had a headline weekend at the Caboose in 1986, and I was using this bass player who shall remain homeless, who didn't show up for the sound check at 4. I got on the phone. I got Mick McCormick from great bass player who came and showed up on the spot. And that night, a kid came up to me, fresh out of Berklee School of Music, named Jimmy Anton, just in from Boston. And he goes, "Hey, I'm a bass player. If you ever need a bass player, give me a call." I go, "As a matter of fact, son, I need one tomorrow night." And so I gave Jimmy his first gig, and I'm also proud to say he met his lovely wife, Michelle, at a Paul Metsa gig.
Oh, man. They are, and they're just king and queen to me. Michelle, just a beautiful spirit. Oh, my God, so talented, too.
And Jimmy, there's no... one of the best bass players in the country. Who else was on this track? I cut you off there.
Yeah, Peter Anderson on drums. And,
sure.
He plays with Run Musty Run right now, and he played in the Willie Wisely Trio starting in 1987. And John Fields is on the bass and also leaning over to click record on the tape machine. This is recorded direct to tape, 2-inch tape, no click track. So it's a good old-fashioned rock and roll recording, and I hope y'all enjoy it. It's on my most recent album, Face the Sun.
And I believe people can track down these recordings and your performance schedules. Is it wiselymusic.com?
I prefer people just go find me on the platforms where they're comfortable. If you dig Instagram, if you dig Facebook, go find me there. I'm available at all the streaming services, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all that. So, go there. Yeah.
Because you are a modern cat, Willie Wisely. Here's Cut Your Groove by Willie Wisely. Back with one more set with Mr. Wisely on the Walnut Power Radio Hour.
Keep. I didn't talk tough to hear myself speak. I said what I feel was real, and that's all. So don't be fighting when you acquiesce. When they plant a bomb in your dress, searching for a fuse we can use to blow minds. I'm gonna cut yeah.
welcome back to the third set on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. My friend Willie Wisely on for the whole show tonight. He's got a big show coming up on Valentine's Day at the Granada Theater in Uptown, Minneapolis. Willie, tell us a little bit about what people are going to hear on your Valentine's Day show.
Yeah, I have written songs of love all my career, and it just suddenly dawned on me that, like, man, I should own Valentine's Day.
There you go.
So I thought, wouldn't it be nice to do a sit-down dinner, a romantic, arrangement? I've got a song called Flowers for the Lady, and it's all about taking a flower off of a maitre d' at the restaurant and giving it to your girlfriend. And I just I just want to start there and let it bloom. And I thought, I've got this great Minneapolis band, so many talented people in it, and I just want to, and also the point of playing shows sometimes is just get up there and rock their faces off. And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of think personally my best stuff is my ballads and my stuff that's in 6/8 time and things that talk about deeper emotions. And so it's like, I want to play a gig where I do emotive music and not necessarily kinetic music. And this is Willie Wisely Plays for Lovers, Valentine's Day, February 14th at the Granada Theater Uptown. And there's the Granada made an exquisite custom bespoke menu for the night, and you can sit down and have a 5-course meal for that price and a 4-course for this price and a la carte for that price, or you can just come and pay $15 and enjoy a great show. And the acoustics in that place, anyone who remembers the what was it called, Suburban World Theater between
these two other lots.
Yeah, I saw a lot of movies there. It's still the same silent movie theater from the 1920s with all the Spanish colonial arched roofs and portobellos in there, and the statuary, and they project stars and moon on the screen just like they did when the theater opened. Yeah, so it's a great place to see a show, and it's a great place to bring your loved one, your partner, a friend, and have a really extraordinary meal. And their kitchen is from scratch. They don't, the trucks don't pull up with all the sauces. They make them all from scratch there. So
cool. Now I got to ask you, Willie, you spent a lot of time. I think you left Minneapolis for Los Angeles in 1999. And when I was reading a bit of your bio, it said you also have done a little acting while you were out there.
Yeah, when I first got to L.A., I just needed, income. And I was, doing some film scoring, but work was sort of intermittent. And I thought, well, I was a theater minor in college. Let's see. And I was actually in some theater stuff in Minneapolis, I guess most notably as something about Orson Welles' works progress, stuff from the 1930s. It was at the Southern Theater, and I really enjoyed that. And it blended my music with acting, and I was in high school plays and stuff. I'm a big ham, so I'm all in for it. And so I started applying for extra work, and because I kind of have a weird look, and I kind of have a 70s vibe or something. I got booked as a lot of drug dealers and ne'er-do-wells and stuff, and so, and I just my face kept appearing in the pilot to 6 Feet Under. I had a little quick cameo, and the movie Autofocus, Austin Powers Gold Member.
Wow.
A bunch of Tostitos commercial in the Super Bowl, from early aughts, and you barely get paid at all, and you're surrounded by people who are all trying to poke their face in the camera to be next to whoever, Mike Myers, whoever's starring in the movie, or Beyonce. But it was so it's sort of hell, honestly, hell work. But it was fun, and I kept getting put into sort of elevated, like, hey, put a waiter costume on him and have him bring the food. And so I'm not just background, I'm sort of just because I had an interesting look, and so that's a funny part of my life. And occasionally fans will email me going, hey, get the hell off my the TV screen. What are you doing in 6 Feet Under? That's my favorite show ever. And,
oh, cool.
I was a crack dealer in the first episode of 6 Feet Under. Pushing crack on my pregnant girlfriend.
I don't know if you've ever bumped into Chris Mulkey. St. Paul boy. He was. He's been in over 100 films and television shows. His first job, he went to. Grew up in St. Paul. His first job when he moved to Los Angeles after working at the Children's Theater and the Guthrie Theater, was he played a gay coke dealer on Beretta. So it's kind of worked his way up, but he's just a phenomenal actor and also a really good musician as well. Speaking now, I had a little twinge of jealousy when I was reading your bio. You lived for a while in Laurel Canyon. Let's talk about Laurel Canyon.
Yeah. When right away when I moved to Los Angeles, I was told West Hollywood was cool, had some affordable rentals, and then right above West Hollywood is Laurel Canyon, and all you have to do is drive up there once and realize, okay, I need to live here among these windy roads where you can just get lost, and it's immediately apparent, like, okay, there's Frank Zappa's place, that's where the Monkees live. That's where Three Dog Night lived. That's where Joni owns. That's where, Carole King wrote Tapestry there. And you're just like, this is all within 1 mile of what I just described. And so the legacy, the Doors live there, blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on and on. So it's this storied neighborhood. I didn't even mention Crosby, Stills and Nash and the Mamas and the Papas and endless. But so I was drawn to the place, and we bought a little house up there. It was 900 square feet, and it turns out that it was right next door to Neil Young's pad, and it turned out that, the scion to the Reynolds aluminum foil fortune misbehaved there, and then the famous Beatles photographer William somebody lived there and had actually left art on the wall of his, and that was still there when we bought the house, and it was just a really fun place to live, very creative. I built a studio in the garage. We had 2 kids, and we lived in 900 square feet. So, yeah, that was crazy stuff. And you're literally living among, bamboo grows 2 stories tall, so the bamboo is just rustling all around you, and it's a magical, magical place.
Did you ever bump into Jimmy Steinfeld out there, the photographer?
I'm in my backyard on day 3 of owning this house in 2004, and a few rocks come tumbling down the hill that is straight above me. I mean, we're talking like a 60% grade straight up, and the hills there are made of crumbling granite, so there's lots of rocks you can throw, and all this stuff is coming down on my head, and I look up, and it's some guy 100 yards up going, Willie, Willie. and I come to learn that, to get to his house, you have to drive 2 miles of winding road, but he's 100 yards straight above me. And
fantastic.
It turned out to be Jimmy Steinfeld, who lived on, Elysian Way or something like that, and he threw parties because he had this view of like 270 degrees of the valley and the Hollywood basin, and Jimmy was very generous. He had a beautiful photo studio up there. Took a lot of photos of me and all the friends, and documented that time.
And a sweet guy. Well, Willie Wisely, I wish you the best of luck on your Valentine's Day show at the Granada Theater in Uptown Minneapolis. I look forward to seeing you in person when I get down to Minneapolis. I'm going to track you down. We've got to do lunch together and get caught up in person. But thanks so much for spending time with us this evening. We're going to go out with a song Willie's called Too Quick to Live. And, God, I wish you all the best, Willie, and welcome back to Minnesota.
Oh, thank you, Paul. It's been such a pleasure to reconnect with you, and I love your show, and thank you for telling everyone about Valentine's Day at the Granada Theater. Really appreciate that. Yep, it'll be a special show.
That dirty old T-shirt never looked better than hung on the frame of my beautiful Heather. She's young, and I'm stung. Through all of the pain and all my denials, moments lasted for miles and miles. We went deep, deep into love. It's so wrong, maybe Heather, we weren't made to fly. We got lost, we were too quick to love. The bedroom was burning, sweat on your face from the golden retrievers that slept across our legs. I insisted, you resisted. It's so wrong, maybe Heather, we weren't made to fly. We got lost, we were too quick to love. So don't try and make things better, though you're sweet to try. We got lost, we were too quick to love.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. The show is produced by Paul Metza, engineered by Brett Johnson. We'd like to thank our guest, Willie Wisely. My book, Alphabet Jazz, Poetry, Prose, Stories, and Songs, is available on Amazon.com or buy it in person at the Electric Fetus in Minneapolis. I have a big show coming up as part of the Music and Storytellers series sponsored by Sue McLean and Associates at the Women's Club on March 25th. Please show up. I think you'll enjoy it. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.
The wall of power will fall.